Welcome back to Alpine Garage Sports, where we hang out in our garage and we talk about sports, specifically CU football and everything in the atmosphere that's going to affect CU football. We're wrapping it all up. We're talking about CU culture. We're old school Colorado Buffs fans from back in the 70s and 80s that grew up in Colorado football. And now we came to prominence in the 90s, 80s, and 90s, and now we're coming to prominence again. It's been a long time since we were successful, and I love to see these new Colorado fans following Prime to Colorado. You guys are awesome. I'm seeing lots of love for the team, lots of love for Prime, and obviously you see the pictures of Boulder. I'm not saying it's a hidden secret because everybody knows, man. If you watch Mork and Mindy, you know how Boulder is, and if you don't know what Mork and Mindy is, then I don't know what to tell you. I want to pause for a second and say you guys have opened your hearts to us, and just in a few videos, we are almost at 1,000 subscribers. Your commenting is awesome. The comments are constructive. They give me a lot of hope. I'm answering every comment. If you comment, I'm gonna answer that comment. And no matter how big this channel gets, if you comment, I'm going to answer that comment. And on our live streams, I'm going to invite you in. You're part of our family here in Colorado. So the only thing I ask of you is if you like this video for me. Leave a comment so I know who you are and what you're about so we can communicate. Subscribe to our channel, hit that notification bell so that when we upload a video, you're the first to see it. That's all I ask, and I appreciate you. We actually have a garage where we rebuild old Broncos. We restore cars and trucks. We do a lot of off-roading trips into the mountains and show you the beauty of Colorado. And we build motorcycles, cafe racers, off-road motorcycles, things like that. It's just a lot of fun. I'm not saying you need to subscribe to that, but if you like that kind of stuff, if you're a motorhead of any kind, go over to Alpine Garage and check that out as well. We're here to talk about CU football. Specifically today, we're here to talk about why this picture of Bill McCartney and Coach Prime is catching the attention of myself. It got a lot of hearts, got a lot of likes. People talk about it in the comments. You're not going to see a video on this, I don't think, from anywhere else from the standpoint of actually what this means to CU Buffs fans. But I'm telling you right now, Coach Mac, as we call him in Colorado, and Coach Prime are building their program in the same way. I'm going to tell you the three things that are similar about them in building the program, and that way you can see why this picture is such a big deal. I don't even know if it's as big a deal to either one of them as it is to me and some of the other CU Buffs fans, but I'm going to break it down for you. So first of all, Coach Mac was a winning coach. He coached at Michigan under Bo Schembechler, who is a legend in college football. Then he came to the University of Colorado, and he sucked for 3 years. Not only did he suck, but he was also very controversial because of the things I'm going to tell you, and he almost lost his coaching job. But Boulder stuck with him, and he adapted himself to it. But he also was unapologetic about the way that he was going to build it, because he knew the only way to build this program into a national powerhouse was the way he was going to do it, and no one else could do it like he did until now, and you'll see the similarities. I'm going to give you three things. I'm going to make it quick. The first one is he knew he was going to have to change the schemes, the offensive and defensive scheme. So yeah, boring, Chris, because every coach that comes in knows that a losing team needs to change their scheme. But this is bigger than that. We're going to go over that. The second one is he had to get the best players. Okay, duh, Chris. Everybody knows that. The reason why Colorado football hasn't been very good in a while is because they're not getting the best players. I understand that. But at the time in Boulder, even back then in Boulder, this was a very hard thing to do. Way harder than it is now, because Prime's got his name. Prime's got his football history that he can use to leverage that. Okay? McCartney didn't have that. Everybody knew a little bit about him, but he wasn't a national powerhouse. He wasn't like Prime. He had to do it rawly from scratch, but they're actually doing it in the same way. The third one is discipline and faith. Discipline and faith, I put those together in the same point because they mean the same thing. Coach McCartney was unapologetically a man of God. It almost cost him his job. He created a rift in Boulder, and he was unapologetic to his team, which probably wasn't used to being coached like that. So this is how they're both building their program. First of all, you got to come up with a new scheme. Coach Mac was not, I'm going to say he was not a football genius, okay? He was a very good coach. But Coach McCartney knew how to recruit good coaches. Sound similar? And brought them in, and he was going to be the rock and the direction and the litmus for the entire coaching staff. And he was very good at that. But he knew that in the Big Eight at the time, the Big Eight was as big as the SEC was at the time, We had perennial powerhouses like Oklahoma, who I also am a giant fan of, by the way, ever since I was a little boy, and Nebraska. They dominated. In the old school conferences, when you're recruiting players, the Big Eight recruited out of the West Coast a lot of good California talent there. Now that talent wasn't going to CU. They weren't going to CU. They were going to Nebraska. They're going to Oklahoma because that's where teams won. And the reason why they won is because at the time they played in an offensive formation called the Wishbone, also known as the Bone. Okay, you don't see it a lot anymore, but honestly, if any team played that now, and some teams use a version of that in some schemes, the Bone was dominating in college football at the time. And what that basically was, it was a run-first offense. A lot of times it was called the triple option or the double option. But basically, there's 2 wideouts and there's 3 running backs. Those 3 running backs, and you had a quarterback. So you had the 3 running backs here, right? Looked like a wishbone. And one of them was a fullback, big dude, could crush people, but he could all, those are just random numbers. But just watching college football my entire life and being a huge proponent of the wishbone at the time, and it crushed everybody. McCartney knew that he had to change to that to make a move on Nebraska and those other teams. In order to play Oklahoma, if you couldn't defend the wishbone, you were going to lose. Everybody did. You were going to lose. So he had to build a defense that was counterintuitive to his offense. What I'm saying is the wishbone is one of the hardest offenses to actually build with the right recruits because you had to have people who were lightning fast at all of the positions. And even that said, you had to have a quarterback that was a running back that could throw. And at the time, there were only a handful of people that could really run that offense at a really high level when they were recruiting in the mid-'80s. And that one person that a lot of people were looking at was Salinesi out of California. And he was already slated to go to Nebraska. He's a Nebraska guy. Nebraska's got him lock, stock, and barrel. ESPN reported on it. No one was going to touch him. And McCartney knew at that point, I got to have Salinesi. If I'm going to compete against Nebraska for the next 4 years, I have got to get this quarterback. So that gets into the number 2, which is getting the best player. So how did McCartney do that? So listen to this and tell me if this is not very similar to Coach Prime. They couldn't really recruit the kids from California and Texas and Florida very well because of the cold climate. So he had to go about it a different way. He was not afraid of talking to the family about their young men, and he talked to the family about his faith, and a lot of those parents really were attracted to that. They were attracted to the fact that their sons were going to go to a school and to a man who was going to develop them and turn them into men. Does that sound familiar? Does that sound like something that Coach Prime has said? That's where coaching begins. That's where you really start to develop these teams. And he made an art of it. He went from a school that could not get a 3-star player to play for him to getting 4- and 5-star recruits coming to the team. And it all started with Salinesi and the fact that he was able to flip Salinesi from Nebraska to Colorado. I mean, does this sound like Cormani McLean? I mean, this is insane. It is insane how similar it is. That one player, Salinesi, started to loosen up the dam of players that now we're looking at Colorado. Coach McCartney's goal was to, now that he's got the attention of other players and saying, oh, Sal's coming to Colorado, he's saying, you know why Sal's coming to Colorado? Look at the natural resources. Look at the beauty. Look at the culture. Look at everything that has to do with Colorado and Boulder. And tell me that this isn't better than Lincoln, Nebraska. Tell me it's not better than Norman, Oklahoma. I mean, those are beautiful places, don't get me wrong. I lived in Oklahoma for a long time and I went to school at OU. But the point is, not a lot to do. It's not a beautiful environment. Boulder, you can stand out, like you see Prime stand out on his balcony looking at the mountains. My house faces the mountains. I see the mountains every morning when I wake up. Every time I go and get a drink of water, every time I go to bed, it's the mountains. They're right there in front of my face. And that's the reason why we live here. And there is something exhilarating about that you can't get anywhere else. There's a euphoria there that is absent in almost any other part of the country. And people who have never seen that and people who have never really taken that in are missing out. These players that are coming now and the players that Coach Mack was bringing to Colorado at the time had absolutely no idea about this, and they were completely blown away. They were blown away by the natural resources, and that flipped a lot of players. Plus the fact that now they started to see every day for bad things. The culture of Boulder at the time was not adaptive to bringing in a bunch of new players that didn't understand the culture of Boulder. So they were very resistant to it. The players didn't even have a chance when they came in, and it caused a lot of friction. There were ESPN articles about how bad the culture was at Colorado at the time because of the city of Boulder and the players and this whole thing. It was pretty ridiculous. At that time, I remember I was probably 16 years old. But this is a complete disaster. We're never going to get any better. We have all this great talent, but we're not going anywhere. And then all of a sudden, the third element kicked in: discipline and faith. So his faith, when he came in 82, caused him all kinds of problems, which is kind of an underlying thing to all the problems that happened when the players came, when he started recruiting these really good players to Colorado. It was causing problems. But Coach stuck to his guns. He was unapologetically a man of God, and he was not going to change that. And because of that, he was able to bend everything around him and institute discipline. And so what he did was he basically set a no tolerance policy with his team, and he laid out a bunch of rules that said, listen, if you break any of these rules, it's a one-game suspension. If you break any of these rules twice, you're out for a year. Okay, there wasn't a transfer portal like there is now. If you were going to transfer because you didn't like a coach that was disciplined, you had to sit out a year. So you had to stick to this disciplinarian, and he actually took some 5-star recruits and he benched them for a year during a national title run. And if you look at those players now and they talk about Coach, they talk about how difficult it was at the time for them to understand, but now they understand. How does that sound compared to Coach Prime? Coach Prime is obviously a disciplinarian. He obviously understands in order to build a team, the definition of culture, one of my favorite things about culture, the definition of culture is a group of people that live by a certain set of beliefs. That's everybody moving in the same direction, building a culture. If you build that culture around discipline and faith, if you build a culture of everybody wins and loses by the effort of every individual person as a team, then you are going to win. It doesn't matter who you are. You're going to win. And it may not be a win a national championship, but you are going to be better than you were. Your players are going to be happier than they've been in the past. Coach Prime has to do this the same way that Bill McCartney did it. Now, Bill McCartney did that, and at the same time that he had started to finally meld that team together, Salinesi, who was that star quarterback we talked about, got sick with cancer during the 89 season and passed away after the third home game. Now, you have a team that has been carrying each other now for over a year. You have a team that has overcome cultural differences. You have a team that has learned the discipline and the faith of their coach and their coaching staff. And they now understand how big this is, and they lose their leader. They lose their lead quarterback. And at that point, it exploded. And I remember that day when Salinesi was standing and they were taking shots from him from everywhere. It made the newspapers and stuff like that. You still didn't know that Sal was going to be gone, but the players knew that they had to continue the season for him. And it just lit on fire. And then they went to win a national championship the next year. And then they went to build a program that lasted for well over a decade after that. This is a coach in Bill McCartney who, like I said before, was not the best football coach. He was not liked the most by the community, but he did what he did was thought was right for his players, and his players came, and they kept coming, and they kept playing hard, and they kept winning games, and they built the culture of CU football to what it is now. Now, we've had a 20-year gap of success, but Coach Prime is coming in. Coach Prime is doing it the same way. He's changing the scheme and changing the coaches. He's making it relevant to today's football. He's bringing in the best players. And oh my gosh, do we not have the best players? This is going to be incredible this year. These guys are going to kill it for Prime, and they're going to do it in a way that makes them happy. They're going to love the culture. They're going to be, it's like nothing a lot of these guys have experienced being in Colorado. It's going to be exciting to watch. And then he adds faith and discipline in there. Faith and discipline, which is trust in me to do the right thing for you. Do what I ask you to do in the way that I ask you to do it. And we will grow this thing to national prominence. You will benefit from all of these things that we're doing, but you got to understand that the team comes first. This is Coach Prime and Coach Bill McCartney in a picture. It didn't make all that much news. But to us Colorado Buffalo fans, our heart is melting because of this picture. the excitement just doubled because we remember now, Coach McCartney built this program in a very similar manner. And we are basically reliving history, only with even more excitement and fireworks, even more panache, even better players, and even with more media scrutiny. We are building this program. And I say we, I am building this program. You are building this program. The players that come to CU are building this program. The students at CU are building this program. All of the bandwagon folks that have decided to jump on because Coach Prime is here, you are important. Bandwagon is not an insult. It means Colorado is relevant now, and I want to be relevant too. And your support to this football program is going to make the difference. And it's going to take the folks that are not fully bought in, more bought in. There is no possible way that we are going to be a losing team. There is no possible way. And I'm not saying in year one. I'm just saying in general, this program is getting rebuilt. And it is because of all of us that it's going to happen. I totally appreciate you guys hanging out. I hope you can feel my passion for this. I hope you like and subscribe and you hang out with me and you send your comments down. And I hope you make it to Boulder at some time when we're at the football games and we can meet. I want to live this life of CU football with the rest of you. Go Buffs, we coming.